This is the second page. We went over the first page yesterday, the hyperbola stuff. This is the second page. This is quadratics. All right, it's not just parabolas in a sense where you're just talking about, you know, like standard form of a parabola with it, whether it be x equals or y equals, something like that. This is our quadratics unit from way back when. We need to remember how to do all of the things. Like I said, you have to be able to find domain and range, axis of symmetry, vertex, x and y intercepts, max and min, all that stuff. So we're going to find all of that stuff for each one of these problems. Okay, I know it says identify vertex, axis of symmetry, and max and min values, but I want to find everything so we get used to it. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to write down all of the stuff that I know I can find. Let's write over here. So we're going to find vertex, the axis of symmetry, max and min value, domain, range, x-intercept, and y-intercept, all right? Now, we can fill in some of this stuff already just by looking at our equation. First of all, looking at this equation, this parabola, is it a positive parabola? Is it facing upwards, or is it a negative parabola facing downwards? Positive. My x squared value is positive, so it's facing upwards. So I know that this point right here is going to be called the what? Maximum or a minimum? That's a minimum. That's the bottom. That's the lowest part that that parabola is going to go, and it's going to be at y equals whatever the y part is of the vertex. All right, what is my domain? What are the x values that I can use for all of these parabolas? What's my domain for every single parabola that we're talking about in this unit?
Negative infinity to positive infinity.
Thank you, my dear. Negative infinity to positive infinity. Good. Now, we're talking about range, right? Down here is negative infinity. This is the y part of your vertex, and up here is positive infinity. Where does our graph, where does our parabola exist? From where to where? From the y part to infinity, or from negative infinity to the y part? From the y part of our vertex to infinity. All right, now when I say a bracket, why am I putting a bracket there? Why am I putting a bracket? Because why?
That value is included.
Yep, that value is included. Good. Can I just look at my parabola, my equation, and tell you what, or you can tell me what the y-intercept is?
Yes.
What is it?
27.
Y equals 27. So it's 0, 27. Obviously, is this graph big enough for you to show the y-intercept? No. But you guys should be able to form a general picture. Now, if I'm going to try and find the vertex, there's a tiny little formula that we use to find the vertex. It's x equals negative b over 2a. We find the x part of the vertex, which is the axis of symmetry. Then we plug back in to find the y. So in number 1, or 7, whatever this is, a is 1, agreed. B is negative 10, and C is 27. So for negative b, so I have negative 10 over 2 times 1. What's 2 times 1? 2. So I have 10 over 2, which is 5. So my axis of symmetry is at x equals 5. That's that vertical line that's going to cut our parabola in half. And my vertex is going to be at 5, something. Well, how do I find what the y part is of my vertex? I know what x is, so what do? I plug back in. So I say y equals, my x value I found was 5. So I have 5 squared minus 10 times 5 plus 27. Well, what is 5 squared? 25 minus 50 plus 27. What's 25 minus 50? Negative 25 plus 27. What does y equal? 2. So my vertex is at 5, 2. Where else do I put a 2?
By the range.
Yep, by the range right here. And where else do I put it?
The minimum.
Yep, is that 2. So if I were to algebraically ask you to find the x-intercepts, algebraically, how would you do it?
Like factor and solve.
Yeah, you'd have to factor and solve. You'd have to set this equal to 0, so you'd have x squared minus 10x plus 27 equals 0. What are the factors of 27 that multiply to give me 27 but add to give me 10? There aren't any. So then we'd have to use the quadratic formula to find the x-intercepts, okay? If you guys need me to go through that, I absolutely will. But let's draw a quick little picture of our parabola. My vertex is at 5, 2. Agreed? Which way is my parabola facing? Up. What does that tell me about the x-intercepts, guys?
There's none.
There isn't any. Does this touch? None. Algebraically, if I worked out the x-intercepts, what would my answer be if I worked them out algebraically? I get x equals what kind of a number? Imaginary. Good. Very good. So if they ask you for the x-intercepts and you can graph it somehow, you should be able to see if it's going to cross. If they ask algebraically and you work it out and you get an imaginary solution, that should give you a hint, okay, there are no x-intercepts. This is what your graph looks like. It's above or below the x-axis and doesn't touch it. So anybody have any questions about that? No? Okay. All right, let's do all the things again. We're going to do it right here. We're going to find the vertex, axis of symmetry, max and min, domain, range, x-intercept, y-intercept. Again, first thing you should do is look at your equation, your initial equation. What do you notice about this equation? It's negative, which means it's facing which way? It's facing downwards, okay? That gives us a lot of information. That means this vertex, whatever that vertex is that the minimum point or the maximum point? That's the maximum. That's the highest that parabola is going to go. What is the domain for all of these parabolas that we're talking about? Negative infinity. Good. Kennedy too. Positive infinity. All right. I know this is the y part of my vertex. I know that my range then, think about this. This is a coordinate plane. This is the y part of your vertex. This is negative infinity, and this is positive infinity. When we read from bottom to top, where does your graph exist? From where to where? Negative infinity to where? The y part of the vertex, right? So you know that your range is going to be negative infinity to something. You also know what the y-intercept is just by looking at the equation. What's your y-intercept? At what? Yep, so it's going to be at 0, comma, negative 10. So let's go about finding the vertex. All right, if we're going to find the vertex, I know to find the x part of the vertex, we have a cute little formula. It's negative b over 2a. So I look back here, and a is negative 2, b is 8, and c is negative 10. Agreed? Yes or no, guys? So I have negative 8, negative b, over 2 times negative 2. Negative 8 over negative 4. The x part of my vertex is what? 2. So I know that my axis of symmetry is at x equals 2. I know the x part of my vertex is 2. Now, how do I go about finding the range? How do I go about finding the y part of my axis? My vertex. How do I go about finding the y part of my max or min? What do I do to find that y value? You plug it in. So y equals, what's the equation? Negative 2x squared plus 8x minus 10. So I'm going to plug in 2 from x. So 2 squared plus 8 times 2 minus 10. What is 2 squared? 4. And 4 times negative 2 is? Negative 8. Plus 8 times 2 is 16 minus 10. What is negative 8 plus 16. 8 minus 10 gives me? Perfect. So my vertex is at 2, negative 2. My maximum value is at y equals negative 2. My range is from negative infinity to negative 2. So let's draw a little picture here. I have a vertex at 2, negative 2, I'm sorry. Over 2, down 2, right? My y-intercept is down here somewhere around negative 10, so I know there's another point over here. Which way we say our parabola is facing? Down. So I go like this. Guys, what does that show you about your x-intercepts? There isn't any. There's none again. So algebraically, if you work this out, what would you get as an answer algebraically? X equals what kind of a number? Imaginary. That means no x-intercept. You guys with me on that? I know they didn't ask you about x-intercepts or y-intercepts. I just want to bring that to your attention on how to find stuff. Anybody have any questions so far? Everybody's all right? Guys? It's just hyperbolas and this stuff. It's a quiz. Your quiz, yes. All right, so let's go again. Vertex, AOS, axis of symmetry. What else do we have? Max min. You know, your quiz might be a little long. You guys need to be able to work through it quickly. So these were being able to have some sort of fluency when you're doing this is good. Because if you don't get finished, I can't just say, oh, well, you didn't get to everything, so don't worry about it. It doesn't work like that. So let's look at our equation and tell some information about our parabola just by looking at it. All right, what shape is this going to make? Which direction is it going? Upward. Why is it an upward parabola? X squared is positive. Good. So that means this vertex right here is going to be what kind of a point? Is it, is it maximum or minimum? Guys, is that the maximum? Is that the highest that parabola is going to go or the lowest? The lowest. So it's going to be a minimum. What is the domain of this parabola? Good, Kennedy. Negative infinity to positive infinity. I know this is going to be at the y part of the vertex, so think about what your range is going to be. Is it going to be from the y part of the vertex to infinity or from negative infinity to the y part of the vertex? Good. Y to infinity. Good. What is the intercept? Y-intercept, I'm sorry. Good. 0, 6. So let's go ahead and find the vertex. X equals negative b over 2a. That will give me the x part of the vertex. So a is 2, b is 8, and c is 6. Negative b. So negative 8 over 2 times 2. Negative 8 over 4 gives me? Negative 2. Great. That is the x part of my vertex. That's also the axis of symmetry. X equals negative 2. It's that vertical line that's going to cut our parabola in half. Now the next thing we're going to do is find all the y stuff. The y part of the vertex. The maximum or minimum point. The boundary for our range. How do we do that? We take our original equation and do what? Plug in negative 2. Good. Very good. The x. So 2 times negative 2 squared plus 8 times negative 2 plus 6. Negative 2 squared is 4, and 4 times 2 is 8. Minus 16 plus 6. 8 minus 16 is negative 8 plus 6. Give me what? It's negative 8 plus 6. Negative 2. So my vertex is at negative 2, negative 2. The minimum value is at y equals negative 2. My range is negative 2 to infinity. So let's draw a little picture. Negative 2, negative 2. Where did it say that the y-intercept was? At 6? Okay. So if I have my axis of symmetry that cuts this in half, if I have a point right here that's 2 spaces to the right of the axis of symmetry, then I also have a point That's 2 spaces to the left. So when I draw my parabola, what do you guys notice about the x-intercepts here? Do I have x-intercepts? Yeah, it crosses the x-axis. So algebraically, let's work this out. I have 2x squared plus 8x plus 6 equals 0. If we find an x-intercepts, we're factoring. So if I were to factor this, guys, what's the first thing you should do? You should take the 2 out. Good, Julian. So if I take that 2 out of everything, I have x squared plus 4x plus 3 equals 0. Can I factor this nice and pretty? Is there factors of positive 3 that multiply to give me a positive 3, but add to give me a positive 4? X plus 3, x plus 1, agreed? So I have x equals negative 3 and x equals negative 1. So where does this parabola cross the x-axis? At negative 3, 0, whoops, and negative 1, 0. Good. Good, good, good. Questions, my dears? Is everybody okay? Okay, let's do the next one. Again, we're going to find all the stuff. Nothing on your quiz is going to say find all the stuff. But you should know how to find it all so you don't waste time. You don't sit here and have to think like, wait, what do I do? How do I do this? You should be able to find all of this relatively quickly because you guys have been working through this. All right, again, draw yourself a little picture. What kind of a parabola do I have, positive or negative? It's positive. That means this point right here, that's my vertex. Is that my maximum or my minimum? Minimum. What's the domain? That a girl? Negative infinity, positive infinity. My range, is it going to be from the y part to infinity or from negative infinity to the y part? What is it? What's my range? From negative infinity to the y part of the vertex, or from the y part of the vertex to positive infinity? Y part to positive, good. And then what is my y-intercept? Where does this graph cross the y-axis? At 0, 11. All right, so now let's find our vertex. X equals negative b over 2a. We use that formula to find the x part of the...
Y to infinity.
Yes. So A equals 1, B is negative 6, and C is 11. So I have a negative 6 over 2 times 1. 6 over 2 equals 3. So my vertex is at 3 comma something. My axis of symmetry is at x equals 3. That cuts the parabola in half. So now to find all the y parts, the y part of the vertex, the y part of the range, the y part of the max and min, we take this value and we plug it into our equation. So y equals x squared minus 6x plus 11. Is that right? Yeah. So plug in 3. 3 squared minus 6 times 3 plus 11. 9 minus 18 plus 11. What's 9 minus 18? Negative 9 plus 11 is? Positive 2. There you go. So my vertex is at 3, 2. My minimum value is at y equals what? 2. My range is from 2 to infinity. So let's do a little picture. 3, 2. So what kind of a parabola? Positive or negative? Positive. It's going up. What does that tell me, guys, about my x-intercepts? Where does this parabola, the purple one I just drew, cross the x-axis? It doesn't. None. So algebraically, if you were going to work it out, what would you come up with algebraically? Your answer would be what? Imaginary. Good. Have I repeated myself enough? Yes. All right, now we'll do these last two. If you're talking about going from vertex form to standard form, all right, we did some problems before, given a point on the parabola and the vertex. We're going to do more of these tomorrow, I promise. I'm going to put together another little quiz review, so we have something to do tomorrow, some extra practice to work on. But if you guys are in vertex form already, what is my A value here? Just so we know what we're looking at. What's my A value? -1. Who said that? Okay, good. What is the vertex? +9 and what? Nope, this one doesn't change. A times x minus h squared plus k. Yeah. It only changes if it's in the parentheses. So it's 4. So what's going on? What does this mean? How do I go from vertex form, we're in vertex form, to standard form? Some of you guys just wrote down an answer. It was amazing. You didn't have any work to do. It just came to you in your brain. It was amazing. If that doesn't happen to you and you actually have to work it out, this is -1, right? What does x minus 9 quantity squared mean? X minus 9 times x minus 9, right? And then plus 4. Guys, you've got to think about order of operations. The first thing we need to do is FOIL this. Then we're going to multiply by -1. Then we're going to add 4. So keep your -1 out in front. If you want to just keep it a negative, that's fine. And then keep this plus 4 over here. But we got to figure out the FOILing first. So x times x is x squared. X times -9 is -9x. -9 times x is -9x. So that gives me -18x, right? And then what is -9 times -9? +81. I now distribute that negative sign. So here, here, and here. This becomes -x squared plus 18x minus 81. And then the last thing I do is add the 4. So in standard form, this is -x squared plus 18x minus what? $77? There you go. You guys can tell me a lot about that parabola. Which way is it facing? What direction? Down. Where does it cross the y-axis? At -77. Am I going to have you graph that? Probably not. What's the domain? There you go. Okay. Let's look at 12. All right. Yes, ma'am.
Is the standard form the way that like we looked at it in the notes?
On your quiz, I'm going to tell you like this is vertex form and this is standard form. Different books call it different things. So when it's written where it says
like x minus h squared equals 4p, we're not doing that.
No. That's a different. We're just working on just quadratics, not the parabolas where it's x and y, x equals y equals, not those. That's going to be on your final. We're just worried about just quadratics like we did in Algebra 2 and at the beginning of this semester. Or actually the beginning of first semester. So let's look here, all right? What am I going to do first? Let's write it out and see exactly what we need to do first. Don't take shortcuts. -1, I have x plus 8, and then minus 8. Lots of 8s here. But the first thing we need to do is to FOIL. Then we're going to multiply by the -1. Then we're going to subtract the 8. So we have -1. We got our minus 8 over here. Let's FOIL. X times x is x squared. X times 8 is 8x. And then 8 times x is 8x. So plus 16x. 8 times 8 is 64, right? Now I have my -1 that I'm going to distribute. So this becomes -x squared minus 16x minus 64. and then I have my minus 8. So y equals negative x squared minus 16x. What's 64 and 8? Anybody? 64 and 8. Minus 72. And there we go. I'll upload this in just a minute, guys. What you